Yo, what's up? So I wanted to come on here and talk about some of the misconceptions and things that I learned when you're trying to do a business that's independent, or if you're, specifically want to talk about an independent recording artist. And what I learned the hard way is in 1986 when I put my record out with my own money. I hustled up. Anybody that knows my story, if you don't, check out my movie Philly Boy, and it'll tell you my hip hop story. Back in 1986, I was one of two people that put our own records out with our own money, and we were artists on the label. And so when I put the record out, something I didn't learn, and some of the stuff that I didn't learn until later on, is that everybody's not happy for you. Everybody's not really rooting for you. Well, in my case, they weren't rooting for me because there's certain things I didn't understand at the time. I thought that everybody was going to be, yo, this boy put his own record out. That's what's up. No, it wasn't like that at all. Because you got to understand that whenever you're an independent business, there's some other major business that isn't independent that you start to become in contest with. Just think about it. So I'm a young guy. I take my money, save money up, put a record out, and that record that I put out ends up on the same shelf with a major record companies. And so when people go into these mom and pop stores and these record stores, right next to something that was put out by maybe Sony, Universal, Paramount, whatever what is it? Capitol Records, Atlantic Records. My record, I spent nowhere near the amount of money that they spent on their record, but it's sitting on the same shelf. So when a customer walks in, they're like, they got a choice. They got to choose between this independent record or this major label record. So major labels are not going to embrace, and they wasn't really ready to embrace an independent artist. And then you got to think about like people like you know, then there's family and friends. If you were in competition with any family and friends, they're automatically angry at you because you've taken a step above them. So sometimes you don't see jealousy until later on. I learned after the record started blowing up, I wasn't invited to parties anymore. I wasn't invited to functions. Like people would have things and not even call me. Like it's almost like my friends didn't want me to go because I would suck up all the energy in the room or whatever the case may be. I just noticed that once records start to pop, people that were friends and close started to reach out less. And then also one big deal is my record blew up in the streets. Like I never took my record to a radio station in Philadelphia. I recorded the record. I got the record mastered. I pressed the record. I got the records made, and I brought them directly to the consumer in the record stores. The record blew up. The streets had to have it. So what happens is the the people that heard the record at a party, they'll go to the DJ and say, "Yo, what was that record?" DJ tells them what the record is. They call a radio station requesting for the record to be played. So now the DJ, if the DJ is worth his salt, he has to or she has to have that record. And it's just like, even on like Street Beat, I didn't even know what a radio station was. So when Lady B's playing Discombobulator Boobulator, my record, on the radio, she didn't get it from me. She sent somebody to the store, they bought the record, put it on the radio because she wouldn't be, I mean, what kind of DJ would she be if she's not playing a record that's hot in the streets? So me thinking the way I was thinking, oh, this is a great thing I did, but not to a radio DJ because radio DJs are getting payola. They got major labels paying them to play music. And so here comes this independent record. I'm not paying nobody nothing. Nothing. My record blows up in the streets. The streets call for the record. My record ends up on the 9 at 9 countdown. It ends up number one on the radio station in terms of countdowns. It was like it was doing mad well. And I'm thinking like the DJs are um um really going to be excited about this. But no, because it's taking money out their pocket. So you think that what you're doing is great, But you got to understand there's always going to be some opposition. There's always going to be a company that sells the same type of product that does not want you in the business. So what I started to learn is people that I thought was like, really supportive before I made records, if they were connected to the industry in any way, they started to be less supportive because I didn't have to go through the crooked way of getting my music played. The people got my music played, and there's a lot of people that don't like that, especially let's say A&R people, radio DJ people, um, um, people that's connected to record labels, where the record label have this system of how they get artists and how they put them on the label and how they own them lock, stock, and barrel in a contract. I didn't have any of that. I was just a guy, put a record out, the record got hot, the record started getting played, and I'm thinking everybody's gonna love it. And there were so many people that were like that didn't love it because it was basically it was defying what people believed the music business was. And that's why I so and then to make matters worse, I started to teach everybody around me how to do the same exact thing. I told them what studio I recorded at. If you look at my first record, the name and the number, the phone number of the studio that I recorded at is on the record. The disc makers is where I pressed the records. That's on the record. I wanted people to read the label and follow suit. I wanted them to do the same thing the same way that I did it. I've never been a gatekeeper. And so that was problematical because it's like problematic. Problematical, that's my word. So that was problematic because now I'm teaching artists, hey, you don't need a label. You can be the label. And because of me talking to so many people, there's so many artists that won't even say it, but they were inspired to go and start their own record labels and just put their own records out. And that was definitely ruffling. How do you ruffle the feathers? It was it started to ruffle the feathers of people that were in the industry. And what I thought was going to be love, it turned into a staying away from me. And anybody that's connected to major labels, like these major labels are telling these people in the streets that if they can't buy you out and take your label on and and buy you out for pennies, they don't want nothing to do with you, and they definitely don't want to support you because in business everything is competition. Everything. If I sell a product that's on an independent small level, there's some big company that feels as though they're going to be hurt by me selling the same thing in the same stores, and I didn't pay the same amount of money that they paid. I actually showed that these companies were unnecessary. And we're talking 1986. This was way before I heard Too Short talking about he was one of the first, but I think Too Short came out in 1987. Me and Schoolie I think started in 83, 84, 5, and my record came out in 1986. But yeah, I just just want to tell you, man, just because if you're starting an independent business, watch your back, watch the people that you're around. These companies would rather buy your record and then shelf it, meaning they'll tie you up as an artist and get you out of the market, especially if your record is hot and they're like, yo, wait a minute, we just put out a hot record. How is Whose record is that? What record company is that? And then the radio DJ goes, well, that's an independent guy here out of Philly. Radio stations don't want to hear that shit. Neither do A&R, neither do the radio DJs. But at the time they had to play it. They had to play it because it was a hot record in the streets. And and the record companies are looking like, wait a minute, we buy our artists because basically hits are made by spending money. Record companies, people will tell you now, well, to break a record, you need at least $250,000 to break a record. And the internet, and especially now, back then I didn't have the internet. All I had was radio boom boxes, people's cars, and people taking my cassette, recording the song off the radio and then taking that cassette off to college. So I get calls sometimes or like texts from people that say that they first heard my record in college in freaking East East Bubba, whatever, America, South Carolina, North Carolina, and these people got the record, got wind of the record from people bringing cassettes around. So that's how already records moved back then, how songs moved. It basically physically traveled with people. And now now you can get you can go viral with a record um just through social media if you promote yourself right. But like a lot of artists that get big on social media end up selling everything to a record company, and then the record company does what they want, and eventually you see that artist disappear, or or they'll be around, or sometimes the artists just screw themselves over, where they take for granted how they got to a certain point, and then they'll get big, and then they'll start to just lose humility, and not understand that you needed people, or you need people to promote what you're doing. But yeah, it was a different, it was definitely a crazy mindset, when I realized that people were turning their back on me because I threatened the way business was done when it came to records here in Philadelphia. And like I said, I told everyone. I taught I taught my manager how to put out records. I taught friends how to put out records. I taught anybody that I could. I taught them how to do it. So I was a problem. And and there's some people who still don't really rock with me to this day because I do things my way, how I want to do it. Um, don't gotta answer to nobody. I put music out whenever I want. I've been putting music out ever since 1986. I still put music out. I'll be putting a song out this week. Um, and but yeah, that's something I just wanted to say, and just understand that when you jump into a business, there is competition that does not want you there. There are people who will align themselves with you to find ways to sabotage you. There are friends who don't want you to blow up. They don't want you to leave the hood and leave them there. Or they don't want you to be bigger than them. They want you to stay right where they are, and not really move or advance any. Um and there's friends. There's friends when you're accelerating in life. I had a cousin, I'm sorry, this family. I had a cousin told me one time, we're the best of friends now, but my cousin told me one time, he said, I used to hate, it was funny how it came about. I had a property, and I had some extra rooms in the property nobody was in. I was like in a 2,700 square foot house, and it was just me by myself. So I let a cousin come and stay with me because he had lost his place to stay. He was down, and needed a place to stay, and he wanted to come in, and he paid rent, and which is dope because he was never late with his rent. So it's a really good dude. But one day we was sitting and talking, and he told me, he said, "Yo, man," he said, "I used to hate you." And I'm looking at him like, "Why?" And this is the same cousin I fought fights for, the whole 9 yards. And what he said was that because I became the example that was used by his mom to try to get him to do better. So, family called me Joey. Like his mother would say, my aunt would say, well, Joey wouldn't do it like that. Look at Joey. He's graduating out of high school. Look at Joey. He's achieving this. Look at Joey. Look at Joey. And they got sick of hearing Joey. And a lot of people go through that in their family. When there's somebody achieving, um, then other families start playing the comparison game and start to compare their kid to the kid that's achieving, and so those kids end up resenting you. They end up not liking you, not wanting to be around you. And it was really interesting because like I said earlier, like he called me on the phone one day because this same cousin called me on the phone one day, and he said um that his sister's boyfriend was threatening him. And I don't know if you live in Phil, if you know anything about Philadelphia. At the time, I lived on 38th and Wallace, and he lived in Tasker Home Projects. I jogged because I didn't have a car then. I jogged from West Philadelphia to South Philadelphia. I had to run across a bridge and everything. And I beat the living crap out of this guy that was messing with my cousin. And even that came up because after he said he used to hate me, he also said that he was wrong about me. He said, "Man, I was wrong about you, man." He said, "You gave me a place to stay when nobody else would. You never hassled me. Um, um, you're a lot cooler than I thought you was," because he didn't really know me. He just knew me. I used to fight all the time. So I was the guy he figured he called to fight a battle for him. And then he recalled that, and he was just like, "Yo, man, he said I should have known when you came and fought for me that you was cool, but I was still riding on that um being compared to you, and which really wasn't fair because um and this took me a long time to learn that the way I did things made me exceptional. I just moved different. I was just born to do things different. I'm still here. I'm 61 years old and I'm making cartoons now. And I don't see no stopping. I'm making feature film, um, just doing as much as I possibly can. So I know that I'm rare. Um, and I think I might have been guilty of making comparisons as well. Like if I saw somebody that I thought had potential, I would try to push them. And a lot of times I push way too hard. And not understanding that I'm not them, you know. I had a friend one time, we're in the studio. I was trying to teach this guy something, and I was getting frustrated. And it was a while back. And I remember my best buddy, he pulled me to the side. He said, "Why are you frustrated, man?" He said, "This guy just learned how to do this last week. You've been doing it for 15 years." And it's like, wow, like I had to like really like not be so frustrated with the guy because like he was right. Like the guy was brand new, and I'm sitting here mad at him like he's supposed to know everything that I know. And that's because I wasn't giving myself credit for the time, energy, effort that I put into what I was doing and what I do when I was approaching this person. So it was like a valuable lesson for me. But yeah, man, you know, just stay on your course and understand that the people that may have a problem with you are afraid because their livelihood might be threatened, um, that they want to be the biggest dog in the room, but you're a bigger dog, and you don't even have to try. Like some people are just big dogs and they don't even have to try. They just walk into a place, walk into a situation, and make it 1,000 times better than the people that are already there in that situation. And it's simply because they were just born to do it. So, so yeah, man. So yeah, I just wanted to say something about being independent in any business that you are in. If you're independent in that business, there's some other business that you are threatening. I don't care what it is. If you sell water ice, in Philly, you're threatening another water ice company. If you're a mechanic and you do your own work, you go to people's houses, you're threatening the local garage in some way. You're always going to be threatening something, but you still got to push through. You still got to give it your energy and effort, and not worry about it. But don't be mad because people are just people, and there's still people to this day, like in my city. I know from my neighborhood, I probably done more than any artist that has come out of my neighborhood. I mean, I got songs of major soundtracks, movie soundtracks. I've toured the entire world, performed at the Tokyo Dome, the Osaka Dome, did 13 countries, 33 cities in Europe. I got a hit record. I'm still getting money from, and Go For It for the Rocky 5 movie. Um, my first record, Discombobulator Boobalator, is still streaming and still bringing in money. I've done so many things, and and so there's still people that just waiting for me to drop off, you know, or waiting for me to quit. But I just keep getting more and more blessed, more appreciative of um of what I have and what I do, and I don't take my gifts for granted. I get up, every day and do something in line with what my gifts are. And there's other people who don't put in any of the work, and they're mad at me because they can't finish, or they can't achieve something. But that's what it is. When you're independent, there's going to be issues, there's going to be problems, it's going to be tough. um Putting people together in a group is very difficult, especially for me, because I remember I showed up. I was supposed to be working with some guys. I just said, look, let's just shoot a video today. Here's the script. I got my cameras, I got my mic, I got some lights. And they're like, okay, cool, and come by. So I go by expecting to shoot, and they want to sit down and have a meeting and talk about it all. I said, dude, I got the camera, I got the script. Y'all say y'all actors. Let's get this done. And some people just want to have meetings. That doesn't really fly with me. I'm like, I just get up and do it. It was just to put together an example of what could be done with my cameras, my lights, and some good actors. And I don't know what type of time they were on, but you know, I didn't have to go all the way there. And I went to the location that it was going to be shot at, but I didn't have to go all the way there to have a meeting. There's Zoom, there's freaking what, FaceTime. There's like all these different platforms we can sit and have a meeting. You don't have to travel anymore and do all that kind of stuff. All you need is like, okay, here's the logistics of what we need to do. Let's do it. I'm the kind of person, I just want to go and do it. So yeah, this is a long one. So I just wanted to say that, basically, that being independent has its obstacles. But if you're the kind of person that has to be hands-on and do your own thing, and you like learning the hard way, um, you just gotta keep pushing. And so yeah, I just wanted to say that. It's like this video is pretty long. It's longer than I wanted it to be, but I wanted to come on here and say something about that. Um, Everybody's not going to be rooting for you, and their reasons are not all the time. They're not always coming from a negative place. They're just coming from a place of survival. If you're threatening their livelihood in some way, um, you got to understand, you got to look at the big picture. It's like, well, this radio DJ won't play, my music. Now you can start your own radio station. You can start your own radio apps. You can, anything you want to do now. And the gatekeepers are not in your way anymore. So technology has evolved to the point where if you put the work in, you put enough work in, and you get up every day and put that work in. When you look at people like Kai Sanat and I Show Speed and Wallow and Gilly, these people, they got up every day and grinded, grind until they built an audience, and they found out like what the audience wants and what they needs and all that kind of what their needs were and everything. So stuff could be done without gatekeepers. You just got to put the work in and not waste time with people who really don't have your best interests at heart. And so I'm gonna close this with saying, like, if you're an artist, one thing I learned about being an artist is, if you're an artist, and let's say somebody with clout, or gatekeeper status, or way to get you into the industry, and you present your art to that person, and for them to present to someone else, and then they send you back to the drawing board. Like, I've seen people, a guy will give his mixtape to a guy, or they'll give this song to a guy, and the person goes, "Yeah, well, go back in the studio and remix it or make something better." That person's not trying to help you. Because one thing I learned about rich people is rich people buy what they want. That person's not feeling you. So don't be sweating them. They just don't know how to say that they're not feeling you. They don't know how to say it. So they'll lie. There was a guy in Philly, young boy, told me that he handed his CD to a guy, hoping that this, a quote unquote gatekeeper in Philly. He handed his CD to the guy, and the guy thought he wasn't looking, and he walked like maybe 20, 30 feet and threw the guy's CD in the trash. Instead of just saying, "Nah, I'm not looking for no artist," or "I'm not in position," or "I'm not that guy to get you in." He just took the guy's CD, never listened to it, and put it into the trash. And so you gotta watch what you beg for. There's people who've managed artists into the gutter. You know, Picked them up. Supposedly, I gave them a good opportunity and supposed to be looking out for them, and let the artist just get chewed up by the industry. And then they back up and like they ain't never had nothing to do with the artist, but they didn't protect them. They didn't look out for them. It's so that's when you got management that's kind of cross collateralized. Like I was on MC Hammer's label, and my manager was employed by MC Hammer. So my manager wasn't going to manage shit because his check was coming. He was getting a check from MC Hammer. So him being my manager was an absolute joke. He just because he had his best interest was whatever Hammer wanted. And so when Hammer decided to throw me off the label, I didn't have manager trying to negotiate, do a better deal, or get me on another label because that management belonged to MC Hammer. The lawyers belonged on MC Hammer's payroll. So it was just like it was a really bad situation to be in. Um, so yeah, so and being independent definitely is going to ruffle some feathers. Um, but now in this day and age, it really is the way to go. You can make money on your own. You got to put the hustle out. You got to get in front of people too. You got to build an audience. See, that's the difference between when I was doing something back in the 80s versus now is our first audiences were our own communities. And really, we wasn't making any money. The money what we had was better than money. We had community. Like I can go to my city and set up a show in Philly and pack the house, and I'm 61 years old. And my first record came out in 1985. And that's because I did all the groundwork of building up a career with my own community, my own people. We rapped for free in playgrounds, rapped in house parties for $1, rapped like in gyms and in hotels, all kinds of stuff we did back then that artists are now becoming large in their bedroom, so they don't have that community to back them up. They don't have that face to face or going out to a crowd and stand in front of people. They got the internet. The thing about the internet is it's just as fast as it moves in, it moves out. But my community, in terms of like the hip hop community back in the day, they were our life's blood, our own people in our own community. That's why you still see old school shows, artists who put out records in 1985, 1986, 1987. They're still getting booked, and because they had a foundation of their community. So, artists, as you're building your independent empires, don't sleep on your own community. Don't be next door to people that don't know that you make music or don't know that you do art. Introduce yourself. Get some sound, some speakers and something. Bring it to the playground. Do something. I know it's a different climate now, but that's the difference. Hopefully, um, things will calm down and be less violent, but that's just me being hopeful. But one of the reasons why a lot of hip hop artists from back in the day are still positive and still excited about hip hop is because they had their community, and that never really goes away. I get people texting me talking about their 12-year-old son just heard my record and loved it. A record that came out freaking in 1986. So that's my blog for the day. And MC Breeze, I'm out. Fist bump.